And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek. We love Broadway shows here in America, and I'm sure you do all over the world. Today we're going to be putting on 4 different Broadway musical shows in Show Manager from Queen Games. It's from 2 to 6 players, takes about 60 minutes or less, or even half that if you play with 2 or 3 players. Ages 10 and up. It is a fun, light gateway game type of thing. It's hand management. It's good for families. It's light, but it's fun and it's interesting. Got great components. I'm giving my review too early. Anyway, let's check it out, show you how it's played, and then I'll finally dive into what I really think. At the beginning of Show Manager, you get to pick your instrument that you'll be for the game. The trumpet, the timpani drum, the violin, the harp, me as Dan the sax man playing the saxophone, and the clarinet. So you thematically get to choose which instrument you're going to be. Okay, here's the board set up for Show Manager. We have it set up for a 4-player game. And over the course of the game, you're going to be trying to put on 4 different plays and trying to put them in the different cities. The 4 plays are Moonlight, which is the biggest one, requires 6 people. Then we have Lipstick, requires 5 people. We have Queenie, which requires 4 people. And Ratchet's the smallest, that requires 3 people. You're also going to be staging these in New York, London, Paris, Berlin, or Stockholm. Now on your turn you can pretty much do 1 or 2 major things, and then there's some other things you could do too, but let's talk about the 2 major things first. One is you can hire an actor or actress. And at this spot you can see that this one is $0, $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000. That's how much they cost to hire them. You start the game with $18,000 as long as it's over a 2-player game. And so let's say I bought this lady, I spent $1,000. These would all slide down. They became a little cheaper. And the newest one that no one's seen yet is now the most expensive. Let's say it became my turn again, and I'll just take the free person. This person, we'll talk about what these people do in a little bit, but this person is essentially an amateur actor. They're not good at anything, and they only give you 1 point, and these would slide down. So what are you trying to do? Well, in this case, the 2 cards that I've pulled so far are an amateur actress and this lady here, Maria Catherdale. Now, what we're trying to do is look at these 2 plays. This lady can play 2 different roles. She could play the C role, or Jewel, in Moonlight, and she could play the D role, or Granny Baker, in Lipstick. She is better at playing the D role in Lipstick. She's worth 6 points if I play her in that production. She's only worth 3 if I play her in Moonlight. This amateur actor is worth 1. It's sort of like a wild card. They're good at, they can play any role, but they're just not very good at anything. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm building this hand. I'm probably going to try to really try to put on Lipstick since I already have some good points there with her. Now you can't just keep dragging cards into your hands and having this monstrosity of a hand. You're limited depending on the play that you're trying to put on. For example, when I put on Lipstick, I can't have more than 7 cards in my hand. For all these, there's different amounts. Essentially, it's the amount of people that you need to put on the production plus 2. So no matter which production I'm trying to put on, I can never have more than 2 sort of garbage cards or ones that aren't good for that role. So let's say on my turn, instead of hiring an actor or actress, the other thing I can really do is put on a production. So let's say I put on Lipstick. Now again, with Lipstick, I can't have more than 7 cards, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's it. If I had any more, I could not put on Lipstick. But here we look at the roles. Well, I have this lady that I'll be using for my A role. I have a B role, a C, a D, and an E. I have them all. It's a great cast. Now, if I add all those up, we have 10, 16, 17, 18. I have 19 points. Now we see over here a bonus of 5. Now, that would get me to 24 points. How do you get that bonus? As long as I have 1 of each of the roles, I get the casting bonus, and I would get 24 points. If for some reason I didn't have a role, let's say I did not have a C, and I didn't have a wild card to fill it, it would be called a miscast. I would get no points for that role, and I would not get the bonus. I would discard all those cards to the discard pile, the ones that were in the roles, and then I would choose which city to go in. Now in a 4-player game, anything less than a full 6-player game, each play has some predetermined starting numbers of points. Now if you remember, mine was 24 points and we were doing Lipstick, so I'm going to sort of be in the middle here. It's not a bad, it's actually a pretty good score, but it's not the best. And anytime you're the first person to put on production, you can choose which city to go in. Now this is an important decision because in New York, it gives you the most points. If you are the top spot in New York, at the end, you're gonna get these 22 points. However, if you're last, you're gonna get 0. So there's a very big, it's high and low. It's very risky to be in New York. On the other extreme, Stockholm, if you're first, you're only gonna get 14 points, but if you're last, you're gonna get 4. So from left to right, New York to Stockholm, it goes riskiest to least riskiest. Now, since I was sort of in the middle there, and there's still other people that are gonna have to play the plays, I'm somewhat excited, but not super excited, so maybe I'll decide to put it in Paris. And there they go like that. I was the saxophone, so I put the 20, I wrote in 24 of my points. And they're top to bottom, high points to low points. So hiring actors and actresses is one thing you could do. We talked about staging of production, which is the other thing you could do. Now, before you buy actors, you can choose to spend $2,000 to wipe the board. These all go in the discard pile, and 4 new people would come up. And you can do this as many times as you want on your turn and then buy the one you want. But remember, there's not a whole lot of money in the game, so you really only want to do that when you really have to. The last thing you can do also on your turn is borrow money from one of your stage productions. So let's say, here I am, I'm in last place. I'm the saxophone, I'm in last place here. I don't have so much more I can fall. I can borrow money, and it's $1,000 per point with a max of $10,000. Well, since I'm already in last place, and I'm gonna get stuck with 3 points here, I could probably borrow up to the max of 10,000. So I would cross this out, and it would just be 2 points, or 2 points for that production there, because I borrowed 10 and I would get $10,000 from the bank. So for every point that you deduct off yourself, you take $1,000. Now this could be interesting because now if this person here took 1 or 2,000 or a little bit more, they would end up dropping down below this person. So borrowing is risky. It's something that you have to see how it plays out, but sometimes it might be worth it to drop down just a few points to get a lot of money that will allow you to stage a production in a better city. Once everybody has finished and all of the shows have been put on, there's always going to be one city that's left empty. And in this case, you would count up all your points. Let's say I'm the saxophone. So saxophone, I'm in first place here. I would get this 22 points. I would get this 14 points on the board. I would get 3, and I would get 12, and that's how you count up the points. The one who has the most points at the end is the winner. All right, there's show manager. All right, YouTube commenters. Tom always gets flack about people saying, why do you have multiple people reviewing the same game? Here's a perfect reason why. Tom does not like this game. He thought it was an okay game. It should have stopped at 20 minutes. It could have been a little card game. It didn't need to be this big production. I have a differing opinion, so here it comes. I like this game a lot, and every person I've played it with likes it a lot. I played it with my family who are not gamers. They loved it. I played 12 games with them at the family cabin last weekend. This was their favorite one. How about that? And I took it to my gaming group. I was expecting them to have the same opinion that Tom had. They actually liked it too. They thought it was pleasant, it was nice, and it was fun. So what do I like about the game? First of all, components quality is amazing. The board looks awesome. The characters, the art on all these characters are awesome. The names, they're kind of played off of the real Hollywood or Broadway actors. Some of them look like people you'll recognize. Just putting on the thematically, this game is just looks so awesome. The components can't speak highly enough of it. Now, the actual gameplay, sure, it's simple. But if you know you're going for a simple, if you know what it is before you play it and you're expecting a simple game, there you go. You've got a few decisions. Buy an actress, put on a play, borrow some money, wipe the board. That's pretty much it. It's simple, it's streamlined. Sure, a lot of times you might be just building your hand and taking a card, but unlike what Tom thought, where he was just like, took a card, it was boring. For me, it wasn't boring because you're constantly trying to figure out, it's an efficiency game where you're trying to figure out, okay, I know I can only have a certain amount of cards for each play. So I'm putting on lipstick, the red play, and I know I can only have a certain amount of cards max in my hand. Well, I'm getting close there, and I've got these other good cards that are coming up. Like the guy who's 9 points for Moonlight, and you're like, oh, I want to take that for later, but it's going to make it harder for me to do a full casted game, Broadway, so I can get the bonus. So here's my decision. Do I take it, or do I play it safe? The whole game, this hand management thing, I thought it's simple, but I thought there were still good decisions to be made in this, where you're constantly trying to wrestle with, what am I going to do? Who am I going to come out? Am I going to throw this card, not use this card and use it for later and not get a bonus? So I thought it was good. I also like the idea of figuring out where it's going to stage. The other good strategy point is if you're going to borrow. A lot of times it's like, oh, I'm last, no brainer, I'll borrow, I'll get some money, because you probably will have to borrow at some point. But then if you're like middle of the road or high up, hey, do I borrow? And if I borrow, how much should I borrow? If I borrow, then the person above me is going to be able to borrow that much and still not come down. Well, if I borrow $10,000, I'm going to drop 5 points. Is borrowing $10,000 going to gain me more than 5 points in a different play? So there's a lot to think about here. It's not overwhelming. It's not super complex. It's simple. It's streamlined. But I think it gives you the right amount of thinking, decision making, and paying for those decisions over the course of the game without it being overly complex. So for me, I love the game. I thought it was really good. So did everybody I play it with. So YouTubers, that's why I did this review. Tom didn't like it. I did. It's up to you. You should know by now between seeing how to play it, seeing my thoughts, see why I liked it, why Tom didn't like it, if it's for you. If you're looking for a lighter game that's a good family style, I'd say I'd recommend it. Check it out. Show Manager from Queen Games.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.